is a part of nutraceutical actives which are available with Naturex, and this is now a part of Jivadhan. So that is also another area which I would recommend all our researchers to tap into. So just again coming to the theme of divergent thinking, it's not only pharmaceuticals, cosmeceuticals, nutraceuticals. It's a huge market. It's a huge market, and the industry is also on the lookout, like for solutions for these kind of formulations. Because when one talks about nutraceuticals, these are high dose nutraceutical APIs that one has, So making them into a tablet or making them into granules or making them into a solution is a big challenge. So think of how you all could even work on nutraceutical formulation development. We have with us Clariant, which is into polyethylene glycols. And last but not the least, a very, very interesting supplier that we have is Dober. So Dober comes with a completely different set of products, and they have products for pharmaceutical cleaning. So we'll see in the course of the presentation what are these. Yes, so solubilization, that is tremendous market potential, as we know that most of the marketed drugs, almost 40%, belong to class 2 and class 4 of the biopharmaceutical classification system. And they need excipients for improving the solubility, and the market for solubility enhancement excipients has grown from almost 13%, and it keeps growing because all the new NCEs and the pipeline drugs have an issue with solubility, and it's thus the need of the. So we have solutions from Abitec. So Abitec, as I mentioned earlier, is our supplier for lipid excipients, and we have a range of excipients from Abitec which function as solubility enhancers and help in tackling the solubility issues faced by API. So here we have different brands from Abitec. So basically these lipid excipients are esters of fatty acids. So when you talk about fatty acids, they could be medium chain fatty acids, they could be long chain fatty acids. And the moment I say it's an ester means obviously you have an alcohol. So alcohols could be glycerol, could be propylene glycol, could be polyethylene glycol. So depending upon what is the fatty acid and what is the alcohol used for the esterification process, one has an array of excipients which are available from Abitec. So they come under the brand name of Captex, Capmule, Aconol, Stereotex, and Teprol, and help in improving the solubility and bioavailability enhancement for many of these class 2 and class 4 APIs. So the Captex range per se, when you see from Abitec, these are the medium chain triglycerides, and they act as carriers, solubilizers, anti-tacking agents, and lubricants in soft gel formulations. Captex also finds its applications in topical formulations as well. So there are different ranges or different brands of Captex available from Abitec, and that finally depends upon what is the chemistry. So if you see Captex 8000 is glyceryl tricaprylic. So this is the caprylic acid ester of glycerol, where all the 3 hydroxy groups of glycerol have been esterified. So this becomes more lipophilic. You also have Captex 355, which is the glyceryl esters of caprylic and capric acid. So depending upon what is a fatty acid, you have different chemistries, and you have different functionalities and different applications. So these Captex ingredients, they function as oils. And you have the Capmule range. Now Capmule, what you have is here the alcohol is glycerol, or the alcohol is propylene glycol for the esterification process. And here again you have an array of fatty acids. So you could have oleic acid, which is the oleic acid ester of glycerol, Capmule GMO, and you could see different fatty acids, like for example in Capmule PG2L you have lauric acid as the fatty acid and propylene glycol as the alcohol. So as I mentioned earlier, the length of the fatty acid and the alcohol used for esterification defines the HLB of each excipient. So something which has an HLB of 6 can act as a co-emulsifier in a surfactant formulation to improve the solubility of the API. Something which has an HLB of 2 may simply act as a lipid matrix for sustained release. Similarly, something which has an HLB of 3 could simply function as an oil in a surfactant formulation. Chemistry of the ingredients helps in selecting the right excipient for the right application. So going on further, you have further excipients from Apitec. You have aconons. So when you look at aconons, they function as solubilizers, emulsifiers, and bioavailability enhancers. And if you look closely, the alcohol here is polyethylene glycol. So predominantly it is polyethylene glycol, and when you see the chemistry, you also see some glycerides mentioned here. So glycerol esters are also there in the chemistry if I take for aconone MCA2, but the predominant ester is of polyethylene glycol. And as we all know, polyethylene glycol is very hydrophilic, so it gets an HLB of almost 14, and thus you can categorize them as main surfactants in a surfactant formulation. Here you have aconone AKG6, which gets an HLB of 4 because though it's a PEG and a glycerol ester of oleic acid, you have more concentrations of the glycerol esters. Okay. Next, you have the stereotex, which are hydrogenated vegetable oils, and they could work as lubricants, they could work as sustained release matrices, they could work as dry binders, they could work as thickeners in formulations, and you have the different grades for stereotex again. Apart from that, you have the caprol range, which act as solubilizers and emulsifiers, and caprol gets an HLB of 11. You also have BBSC, which is a partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, and this acts as a suppository base. It also acts as a good texturizing agent in topicals. So when you look at these chemistries, so what I would like you all to take away from this particular slide is understanding the chemistry of each excipient is so very important, based on which you can identify the niche function for that particular excipient and use it in your particular formulation. Okay. So this is one case study that we did in our lab with Capmule GDB. Now Capmule GDB is glyceryl dibehanate, and this has an, when I say glyceryl dibehanate, this is a glycerol ester of behenic acid, which is a long chain fatty acid of about 22 carbons. And this particular excipient acts as a sustained released lipid matrix. Okay, so for sustained release, generally when you see the market, when you see the formulations available in the market, most of them have been done with hydrophilic matrices, especially HPMC or even HPC. And now the lookout for the industry to come out of patents, the lookout for the industry is to explore non-hydrophilic excipients, or what you could say non-cellulosic excipients for sustained release. And Capmule GDB as a lipid very well falls into this category, and this is the lookout even which you all can have. You all can identify sustained release dosage forms with hydrophilic matrices which are going off patents, and you all can develop a sustained release formulation with these lipids materials or with also some other matrices for sustained release other than HPMC, and that is the need of the hour. So this was one small study that we did in our lab, and this was to promote Capmule GDB as a versatile lipid for strategic and sustained release formulation. So here what became important is selecting the right API, and we selected levetiracetam, which is a highly water soluble high dose API. A very simple technique of hot melt granulation was selected because lipid Capmule GDB melts at 70. Working with lipid gives you an advantage that you can do a solvent-free hot melt granulation technique. And we also, what we could also do is we could use a water insoluble diluent like dicalcium phosphate for tweaking the release profile along with Capmule GDB. These are some of the physical parameters wherein we developed a very good formulation with Capnul GDB at 22% concentration, and this was compared with competition, and this was also compared with a marketed hydrophilic swellable tablet. So this particular marketed formulation was with a hydrophilic matrix, and when we did a comparison, the formulations, the tablets that we formulated with Capnul GDB were comparable in terms of the weight, hardness, thickness, friability, etc. Okay. Furthermore, when we saw the hydrophilic matrix, the hydrophilic matrix essentially swells. So the mechanism of release becomes a combination of diffusion and erosion in the times to come. But what happens for Capnul GDB, which has an HLB of almost 1, it is so lipophilic that it just doesn't absorb any water, it doesn't swell, and thus you have the diffusion mechanism of release, for the particular formulation. So you get a better IV IDC. So these are some results or that I would like to share for this particular case study, wherein the flexibility of working with different concentrations of Capnul GDB helps you to tweak the release profile. Okay, so it's merely changing the concentration of the lipid matrix helps you tweak. Also, when we compared it with the hydrophilic swellable matrix, the release profiles were comparable. Alcohol dose dumping study is a very stringent requirement by US FDA, and that too was done by lipids. Capnul GDB just doesn't have any solubility in alcohol, and thus the release profile was almost the same even in 40% of alcohol. And we compared the release profile also with a competitor GDB available in the market, and it was actually the same. Yeah. So these were some of the results which I would presented from my case study, which was developed in our lab. And thus these lipids prove to be an excellent SR matrix over hydrophilic matrices for a variety of APIs in ANDA and your 505 due to filings. The liquefaction of the lipid provides good binding, reducing friability. It also gives a good sheen to the tablet, so you can preclude the coating step, which is generally done, for tablet formulations. It gives a good hardness, and it's a process friendly operation because it's a completely solvent free one pot process, amenable to scale up as well, optimization friendly, and you hardly require any excipient. So if you go to see the formula, you have the API, you have the lipid matrix, you have the filler, you have the lubricant, and that's it. You don't require a separate binder because you're doing a hot melt granulation process. The lipid matrix itself works as a binder. So this is a case study which I presented for Capnul GDB. In a similar manner, for your research proposals, you can evaluate different lipid matrices. The other one which I presented was Stereotex, or you all could evaluate stearic acid, or you all could evaluate whatever lipids as an alternative to HPMC and develop such formulations. It could be a small part of your research projects, and it will really help the industry in a big way. Yeah. So some examples for you all, APIs which have been formulated with Capnul GDB and also with Stereotex hydrogenated vegetable oils. You can identify one of these APIs and work further with other non-hydrophilic excipients for sustained release dosage forms. Yeah. So the next lookout for the industry is bioenhancement through lipid systems. And as we discussed earlier, that it is a need of the hour. Many of the APIs exhibit poor water solubility, and lipids play a very important role in enhancing the solubilization. So they are first of all safe and efficient, which is a very important criteria, and they benefit a wide range of drug molecules through a range of excipients, and they improve solubility by simulating physiological events, because lipids are something which are always a part of a daily diet also. So when lipids as an excipient is also going to behave in the same way as a lipid consumed in food would behave in a physiological environment. So that's how safe and efficacious lipids are. You're formulating a self-emulsifying drug delivery system. What you actually require is you require a neat oil, you require an emulsifier, co-emulsifier, the main surfactant, which along with the API, where you could formulate a self-emulsifying drug delivery system. And Abitec just has that. So Captex represents the oil part, Aconon represents the surfactant or the emulsifier part, and Capmule represents the co-emulsifier part. Of course, whenever you are selecting Abitec excipients or excipients from other suppliers as oils, solubilizers, or co-emulsifiers, it's very, very important for you all to check the solubility of the API or the affinity for the API in each of these ingredients to help you formulate a successful self-emulsifying drug delivery systems. And lipids help you in enhancing the bioavailability. They increase the formulation efficiency by reducing the dose because the bioavailability is increased. They help in protection of the API during processing or manufacturing, also in the gastrointestinal tract. They reduce the food effect and usable in liquid or semi-solid dosage form. So always that was a thought process that with lipids it's very difficult to go into oral solid dosage forms like tablets, but let me tell you it's quite simple. You have these range of products from Abitec, the Captec solubilizers, Capmules, and Aconons, which help in the formulation of self-emulsifying drug delivery systems. And that is one area which you all can tap into because many APIs require it. They require solubilizers to enhance their solubility. One other area which also needs to be tapped, I don't know how much it is a part of your research endeavors, is the topical formulations or the topical route. And as I mentioned before, it's not only from a pharma perspective, but it's also from a cosmeceutical perspective. Okay, so a highly efficaciously developed sunscreen is the need of the hour with a good SPF, with a good efficiency, or a vitamin C serum or an under eye cream. It is the need of the hour. It might sound quite cosmetic, but it is the need of the hour, especially on big pharma companies like you have Cipla, you have Glenmark, you have Torrent, you have Dr. Reddy's who work on these cosmeceutical range of formulations. So in topical formulations, what actually is the heart of the formulation is a penetration enhancer, and there are different skin absorption pathways where you have the paracellular and you have the transcellular. So paracellular is when the API moves between the layers, between the para to the cells of the skin, and transcellulars is across the layers of the skin. So paracellular is preferred by lipophilic compounds and transcellular is preferred by hydrophilic compounds. And Abitec offers a good spectrum of excipients for the topical use in terms of solubilizers and skin penetration enhancers, because here again solubilizers play a pivotal role, because if your API is solubilized in the solubilizer, then only it will be driven across the skin. So it's important that you have a unique combination of solubilization and penetration enhancers, and of course emulsifiers, co-emulsifiers to stabilize the API in the formulation. So that's all available from. And one short case study that I would like to present to you all is on Capmule MCM C8. So Capmule MCM is, if you all try to recollect, it is the glyceryl ester of capric acid, and it acts as a very good permeation enhancer for one of the APIs, pentazocine. So pentazocine is a short-acting analgesic. So what you see in this graph is this is the amount of the API permeated as per against the time, and IPM, isopropyl myristate, is a very, very widely used penetration enhancer. So when you compare the API in IPM and you compare the API in a combination of Capmule MCMC8 along with isopropyl myristate, you can observe the significant enhancement in the permeation of the API. So Capmule MCM C8 with an HLB of almost 6 and its unique chemistry helps in enhancing the permeation of APIs across the skin, especially in case of pentazocine. This is one case study, but it definitely helps in the absorption of different APIs across the skin. Having said that, let me also tell you that these penetration enhancers, the very commonly used one in the industry is alcohol. And one knows the side effects or the disadvantages of alcohol, that it volatilizes out, so there is nothing remaining on the skin to help the API permeate. It also causes a dryness effect. But when you have oil-based permeation enhancers, you also not only get the permeation, but you also get a good emolliency to the end formulation. Yes. So that was what I presented for Abitec, with a focus on sustained release, with a focus on solubility enhancement, with a focus on topicals. And let's go to see what do we have with DFE Pharma. Of course, we have lactose, an age-old diluent filler used in the industry. But is there something that we can extract more innovatively out of lactose? Let's see. Yeah. So lactose, as we all know, is a very important component of tablets, capsules. I don't think so there are any tablets, without lactose. So very widely used as a filler in direct compression. And you have different grades of lactose from DFE Pharma. So you have the spray dried lactose, which is lactose monohydrate. It exists in two isomeric forms. You have the alpha, which is the alpha lactose monohydrate, and you have the beta anhydrous lactose. So the spray dried lactose, you have the brand Supertab 11ST, 14ST, and why you have these different grades is because if one is looking for higher compactability or higher tabletability, you have a unique particle size of 14ST, wherein you get a better compactability for certain APIs where you find problems in compactability. Then you have the roller dried lactose from DFE Pharma, and here you have Supertab 21EN, 22EN, and 24EN. And the excipient for choice to start off is 21EN, but if the API poses problems on flowability or compactability, one can go in for 24EN or 22EN. So that is for evaluation. And of course, you have granulated lactose, that is Supertab 30GR, which is lactose monohydrate. And this Supertab 30GR, if you all remember, while selecting excipients for oral solid dosage forms, sometimes when you have a very low dose API and you need to have content uniformity, the granulated lactose Supertab 30GR plays a very significant role. Wet granulations, you again have a broad spectrum of excipients from DFE Pharma, that you have different milled grade pharmatoses, you have sieved grade pharmatose, you have the lactochem coarse fine powder for the wet granulation process. But what is very commonly used for a wet granulation process in the industry, and nothing can replace that, or what's called as a working horse in the industry, is Pharmatose 200M. That DFE Pharma also has super disintegrants in their portfolio, and they have Primogel, which is sodium starch glycolate type A, and they have Primulose, which is cross carmelose sodium. So these are the two super disintegrants. So if you see this particular slide, you have very conventional excipients, which age-old excipients which are available from DFE Pharma. So what is so unique, or what are the new excipients that we have from DFE Pharma, which are going to add or give that cutting edge to an end formulation like a tablet? So what we very recently launched from DFE Pharma is Supertab 40LL, and this could again be a part of your research proposals. So this is a co-processed excipient of lactitol and anhydrous lactose. As we are all aware, lactose is a moderately brittle excipient as compared to MCCs, which are more ductile or more plastic in nature. So to avoid this, you cannot say a disadvantage, but a little bit of an issue faced by lactoses, and to make them more ductile and more plastic, This co-processed excipient was developed by DFE Pharma by a unique fluid bed agglomeration patented process, and this is a combination of lactitol and anhydrous lactose. And this particular lactitol in the lactose helps in giving the plasticity to the lactose and helps in better and faster tablet compression, improves formulation robustness, and increases the tooling lifespan. And in challenging direct compression formulation, so whenever there is a high dose of the API to be accommodated in a tablet, or one wants to go in for mini tablets to have better compactability, to have more speeds in the tableting compression machines, SuperTab 40 LL functions really very well. So if you all pick up a high dose API and if you all want to work on such kind of a research project, feel free to evaluate SuperTab 40 LL. It's an excellent excipient. Okay. So this is one small case study that has been done with SuperTab 40 LL, and one finds that at higher drug loading, as the drug loading percentage increases, the flow properties obtained with SuperTab 40 LL are better than those obtained with a combination of SuperTab 24 ANN Pharmacell. Pharmacell is microcrystalline cellulose and also a comparable marketed co-processed product. So even for a drug loading of 30%, SuperTab 40 LL shows a good flow. And let me tell you one thing is like even in the industry, I've often had questions from the industry. Like there are co-processed excipients, and these co-processed excipients are quite costly. They're not very cost effective. So what pharmaceutical formulation scientists they look out for is, so if you have a combination of lactose and MCC, they try to combine lactose and MCC in a tablet formulation, and not necessarily it works because they do not have the time to perform, because projects in the industry are time bound, so they do not have the time to do so many kinds of trials, and it's always said that a co-processed excipient, though it's a combination of two excipients, when you take these excipients in individually, it doesn't work out. But maybe you all as academicians can try these endeavors, so try to identify co-processed excipient and try to see how you could combine individual excipients and get the same property. I mean, this would really appeal to the industry. Yeah. Super ODT is another interesting excipient and quite an innovative excipient from DFE Pharma for orally disintegrating tablet formulations. So, lactoses are not known to give a very good mouth feel because when one talks about ODTs, one generally thinks about mannitol because of the cooling effect or an excellent mouth feel which is given by mannitol. But this SuperTab 50 ODT, which has been processed by a very uh, uh, engineered process by DFE, it gives a very microporous design structure to the excipient if you observe it very closely. And this particular microporous structure helps in better absorption of water and eventually leads to a quicker disintegration of the ODT. So this is a specially engineered product by DFE to meet the needs of excipients for an ODT formulation. So if you all are working on ODT formulations, and ODT formulations, mind you, are very very good formulations for life cycle management of drug products, so think of exploiting this area as well. It's a very simple formulation, but when it comes to ODT, the mouth feel, the taste masking, how does one achieve the faster disintegration time becomes quite critical and vital. That's SuperTab 50 ODT. So before I jump on to Budenheim, are you all still with me? Are you all able to
Yes,
hear me?
yes,
Yes. Thank you so much.
yes, very
Thank you.
much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. We move ahead with Budenheim, and as I was introducing the portfolio earlier in the slide, I mentioned that calcium phosphates are diluents and fillers, but they are not the ones which are as commonly used as lactoses or as microcrystalline cellulose or even as mannitols in the industry. But let me tell you, they are very, very unique excipients, and it's just not as a filler. I would always say calcium phosphate as an excipient is very dear to me because it not only functions as a filler, but it also has very good adsorption properties. And these adsorption properties, helps helps one to prevent maybe there are certain APIs which have a lower melting point and they liquefy during the compression process, and the presence of calcium phosphates as an adsorbent works very well in for these kind of APIs. And the best part of it of acting as an adsorbent is that many of the conventional adsorbents which are available in the market, they face a problem of desorption. Whereas calcium phosphates, they get solubilized in the acidic environment, and there is absolutely no worries of desorption. So what is adsorbed is immediately desorbed and released into the gastrointestinal medium. So here we have different grades of dicalcium phosphates available from Budenheim for direct compression, and you also have calcium phosphates for granulation and tableting. So amongst all these, you have the dicalcium phosphate anhydrous grade, you have the dicalcium phosphate dihydrate grade. So you have the anhydrous and the dihydrate grade. Now here again, I would like to bring your attention from the entire portfolio to dikefos A60. So dikefos A60 is the anhydrous dicalcium phosphate, and if you see, it has a bulk density of 1300 gram per liters. So you can imagine the level of excipient which can be accommodated in the formulation because of its such a high bulk density. So this is a unique excipient to work on without increasing the weight of the tablet significantly. So if one is looking for a high BD excipient, dikefos A60 is a choice. And this is something which you all can evaluate also and focus on this particular excipient. Another one which I would like to highlight here and bring your attention to is Trikefos 500. So trikefos 500 is something which is a tricalcium phosphate, and this has a very high specific surface area and works as an excellent adsorbent and will obviously desorb as well. So if you are facing any issues in tableting, there is sticking issues, picking issues, you have incorporated a lipid, you want to adsorb that lipid onto a suitable adsorbent, think about evaluating Trikafos 500. So these are some solutions which the industry also looks for, and these solutions may look conventional, but they really give a cutting edge to the end formulation. Yeah. Now, a very recently launched excipient from Budenheim is the starter pellets, which they have come up with under the brand name of Far SQ brand. And the takeaway from this particular slide is please try to evaluate the Far SQ brand, that is the starter pellets for dicalcium phosphate, in your research endeavors. So you're all aware that the starter pellets that we have in the market, we have the sugar pellets, we have the microcrystalline MCC pellets which are available. You have pellets for tartaric acid. So these are the commonly available pellets in the industry, but they have their own disadvantages. And that's the reason Budenheim has come up with this unique brand of Farescu, which are dicalcium phosphate pellets, and they are the first pellets to be launched in the pharma excipient domain. And they are a combination of dicalcium phosphate and 20% microcrystalline cellulose. So it's 80% DCP and 20% microcrystalline cellulose. And they are available in different particle sizes to have them compressed into tablets and also to be filled into capsules or sachets. So how do they score over the conventional starter pellets of sucrose, isomalt, MCC, etc.? So when you talk about sucrose, isomalt pellets, they do not have a very strong mechanical integrity. So microcrystalline cellulose pellets, yes, but sucrose pellets, they do not have the mechanical integrity, which is compensated by dibasic calcium phosphate. And the issues encountered with MCC pellets are that uh, they absorb water. So for APIs which are sensitive, one can go in for dicalcium phosphate pellets, and also dicalcium phosphate pellets provide that neutral environment, neutral pH environment for very specific APIs whose solubility is at that particular pH of about 6.5 to 7. So dicalcium phosphate pellets offer that added advantage also. So this was one study which was done by Budenheim, wherein they compared the DCPA pellets with MCC spheres, sugar spheres, and isomalt pellets. So when it came to the breaking strength, of course, MCC spheres scored, but over sugar and isomalt, the highest was recorded. Next to MCC, the DCPA pellets scored well. So dicalcium phosphate pellets have definitely an advantage over sugar pellets, and over MCC they help you in giving protecting your API because they do not absorb any water. They help protect your APIs which are water sensitive. Furthermore, when you look about the fluidization process for DCPA and MCC, it is pretty neat. The beads do not adhere to the glass. Whereas when you look at sugar spheres or at iso malt pellets in a fluidized bed dryer, you find that they adhere to the glass walls of the granulator because of static charge, which is not encountered by the dicalcium phosphate pellets. So this is something which one needs to look at and identify. And let me tell you, dicalcium phosphate pellets are a good platform to work with in your research endeavors. Yeah, so these are some SEM micrographs of drug-loaded diclofenac sodium pellets before compression. So these are the individual pellets of dicalcium phosphate. This is MCC. They are sugar spheres, and these are isomalt. When you look them in the next row, what shows here is the pellet in a compressed tablet. So if you see, the mechanical integrity of the pellet is still intact. Not so observed with MCC, that's quite surprising here, but of course with sugar spheres and with isomalt pellets, the mechanical integrity is lost. And this particular row shows you each of the pellet which has been extracted from the tablet. So if you see, the pellet remains as such. MCC pellet is also quite close to it, but the results are not so positive when you talk about sugar spheres where the sides are compromised, and similarly with isomalt pellets. And furthermore, for coming out of patents, because many of the patents are with MCC spheres or with sugar spheres, the DCPA pellets provide a viable alternative. So this is also one case study, where you all could identify those APIs which have been done with MCC sugar spheres, and you all could think on evaluating DCPA pellets and do evaluation. Okay. Next in line, we have Evonik, and you have the silicas and calcium silicate grades which are available from Evonik Pharma, and they are the aerosols. Okay, and amongst the silicas, you have Aeropol 300 and you have Aerosol R972. So Aeropol is the hydrophilic silica, and Aerosol R972 is the hydrophobic silica available from Evonik. Now, the calcium silicates are something which are very, very interesting, and they are, again, you have Zeopharm grades which are available, and these particular ones act again as good adsorbents in a similar fashion like calcium phosphates, but they still have a higher specific surface area and could function as very good adsorbent material in tablets. Okay. Another unique excipient from Evonik is R excipient FN1000, which is again a calcium silicate, but it's quite a microporous structure and works as a very good disintegrating aid in orally disintegrating tablet formulations. So we just saw Supertap 50 ODT. Along with it, this is also another excipient, our excipient FM1000, which can be evaluated in ODT formulations. So, owing to paucity of time, maybe I may skip a few slides here and there because I would like to have a more interactive session with you all on the question and answers and also on the quiz, which has been a short quiz which has been worked out. Okay. So, if you take a sneak peek into the properties of silica, especially aerosol 300, what's very commonly used in the industry is aerosol 200 as a glidant, as an adsorbent. But when you compare aerosol 300 with aerosol 200, the relatively high tap density helps in better handling and leads to low dust generation, which is an issue generally encountered with aerosol 200. The reason being aerosol 300 is granulated silica and it has a spherical morphology and good porosity and thus improves the flow and leads to high adsorption and API loading. So, Aeropol 300 can be evaluated as a good glidant, as a good adsorbent, as a good moisture scavenger, especially when we have APIs which are sensitive to moisture. So, Aeropol 300 is a good alternative to Aerosol 200, which is very, very widely used in the industry. Among the hydrophobic silicas from Evonik, we have Aerosol R972, and this 972 can work as a very good glidant for very hygroscopic cohesive powders. It can be used as a thickener for oils. It could also be used as an SR lipid matrix for modulating drug release. And it can also be used as an anti-caking agent in powders for oral suspensions, etc. So this is one unique excipient available from Ivana. It prevents powder caking. So this is one short study wherein we evaluated zeopharms in our lab, and what we had done is we were working on one API where we were trying to improve the solubility enhancement or trying to improve the solubility of enhancement, and for which we explored a lipid. So this particular lipid helped in solubilizing the API, and it was quite a sticky melt. And we explored Zeopharm 250 and 600, and let me tell you that just so. So if you can see this video, yeah. So what I can play for it again. Just Yeah. So this was a melt of the API in the lipid, and it was just a sticky paste. But with the use of CO farms, we were able to get such a good flow property for that melt, and it was at really very very low levels of the zeopharms, because if you see the linseed oil absorption of zeopharm is almost 280 ml per 100 grams, and for 250 and for 600 it is 475 ml per 100 grams. Similarly, the water absorption capacity, so very little amount of excipient is required for absorption, and you can very well see the kind of the free flowing powder uh, uh, that really worked out with these particular calcium silicates. So they act as good absorbents, as good glidants, as good moisture scavengers, and also help in giving a high pH value, and could act as a buffer for stomach acid, reducing tablet dissolution. Next in line we have Clariant, and from Clariant we have different polyethylene glycols that we have. So I don't want to dwell much into this, but the takeaway, what I would like you all to take from this slide is just yeah, how you could evaluate PEGs as suppository basis in formulation. So this is one area which needs to be worked on. Suppositories are one very good formulations to be taken as research endeavors. Somehow in India, the market is not very high for suppositories, but if you see in Europe, if you see in a neighboring country, Bangladesh, it's a very huge market for suppository formulation development. And we all know that the Indian pharma industry is very much for exports. So most of the pharma industries are now going in for suppository formulation development because of its added advantages. So the takeaway from here is that you all could evaluate the higher dose PEGs for suppository formulations. Please work on these suppositories as research projects in the lab, and also the PEGs can be evaluated as solubilization enhancers in surfactant. Next in line is BSF. Now, BSF has a vast portfolio of products, but what I'm going to dwell into is the BSF ingredients for enteric coating. Okay, and I needn't go into what are the reasons for enteric release. You all know that better. And the polymethacrylic acid coacrylate chemistry is the best chemistry, which is insoluble in the gastric juice because of the presence of the carboxylic acid functional group, and because of which there is protection of certain APIs which are degraded in the stomach or which irritate the stomach, and where enteric coating is desired. These particular carboxylic acid groups at pH greater than 5.5, the carboxylic acid functionality gets protonated, and thus it becomes readily soluble in the intestine. So this is the principle which it works on. And here you have different Collicot MAE grades available from BSF. So you have Collicot MAE 30 DP, which is a ready to use aqueous dispersion. Okay, and application, it's not suitable for freezing climates, most efficient and cost effective, and aqueous coating is possible with Collicot MAE 30 DP. Because it is not suitable for freezing climate, BSF also came up with Collicot MAE 155, which is a non-neutralized powder, and this is suitable for extreme weather conditions because it's in a powder form. But here pre-neutralization is required. There is quick redispersion, and moreover it could be used for aqueous and organic coating. So that's Collicot MAE 155. In case of pre-neutralized powder, because sometimes customers would not want to do neutralization at their end, so the grade which is available where no pre-neutralization required from BSF is Collicot MAE 100P. And let me tell you that these Collicot range of enteric coating grades available from BSF are a very good alternative for the currently marketed enteric polymers available in the market. And if you all need any samples, if you all want to evaluate them, please feel free to reach out to us. So this was one case study done with the different grades of the Collicot MAE, and pantoprazole sodium was the API, because this is a proton pump inhibitor which is quite sensitive to acid, and enteric coating is a must. So the tablets were formulated with co-processed lactose. So this filler Ludipres is a co-processed lactose available from BSF. Copovidone, that is Collidone VA64, is a dry binder available from BSF, and the disintegrant was used was Collidone CL. Magnesium stearate was used as a lubricant, and these tablets were coated with Collicot MAE 30 DP, MAE 155, as well as Collicot MAE 100. So all three polymers were compared, and dissolution testing was done in different medias, pH 1.1 and pH 6.8. So in 1.1 we find there is no release, whereas the release occurs for Collicot MAE 30 DP at higher pH values. And similarly is the case for Collicot MAE 155, which was very effective in preventing the release in the acidic milieu. Collicot MAE 100. So these are some very good options, Collicot range from BSF, which you all can evaluate as enteric coatings for your research projects. Next, Next in line is Chivatan. So, how can one be innovative in flavors? I mean, that could be a question which could cross your minds. And what kind of a divergent thinking one could have in flavors? But let me tell you, with my experience on working with Chivatan and the flavors, there are a broad spectrum of flavors to work with, and taste masking. Taste masking is a big challenge in the industry. It may sound very simple, it may sound quite lucid, but it is a big challenge in the industry, and the industry is looking out for taste masking of APIs, as simple APIs as paracetamol. Okay, so no one would want to work on paracetamol as an API, right? Give it as a research project to your students. But paracetamol taste masked oddity formulation is still the need of the hour in the industry. They are still looking out for flavors, they are still looking out for taste masking strategies for paracetamol, and they are still looking on for giving an ideal oddity for paracetamol formulation. So flavors also, if we see, there are different flavors. You have dry flavors, which are available in the powder form, which can be directly used in tablets, or you have liquid flavors, which can be a part of oral liquid formulations. Flavors could be natural, they could be nature identical, they could be artificial. Similarly, you have special technologies for flavors as well. So you have something called as pure delivery, which helps gives you a burst effect, a ever fresh ultra seal. You have a perma seal, which is going to sustain the release of flavor over a period of time. You have certain taste essentials, and you have taste solutions. One important taste masking taste solutions or masking solutions that are available from Jivadan are the maskers. So you have the bitter maskers, you have the metallic maskers, you have the sour maskers, you have the salty maskers, you have the sweet maskers, and so on. So if you have a bitter API, so you would always think that you would just use some flavor and mask the bitter taste. Okay, but the story does not end there. In addition, you also have something called as bitter masker, a special category of flavor which goes along with the regular flavor and helps in masking the bitter notes of that particular API. Similarly, you have metallic maskers for formulations which have iron, or you have certain vitamin formulations, so you have vitamin maskers, and these taste masking solutions can be blended with the other conventional flavors which are there. So you have fruits, you have citrus flavors, you have mint, you have honey, you have basil, you have cinnamon, you have beef, chicken, meat. May not sound good, but these are very much used in the veterinary industry. And you have mint, fruit, citrus. So along with all these, you can add the maskers or the sweetness modifiers, or you could add the taste masking solutions in combinations, which can help you mask the taste of APIs. So please take this up as a challenge of using flavors and working on taste masking of APIs. Identify what are the bitter APIs in the pharma industry, in the market. Pick up those APIs and work on solutions for taste masking. It is the need of the hour. The industry is looking out for these kind of solutions. Yeah, so this was one case study that we did in our organization, and that was on ascorbic acid chewable tablet, the vitamin C chewable tablet. And with COVID being so very prevalent, I mean, last year this was put up by one of our customers on a very urgent basis, and we worked this out for our customer. And the challenge here was for vitamin C. We all know that it has a very bad tart taste or a sour taste, and not only a sour and a tart taste, but it also has an bitter afternote. So it became very important to mask that, and we could really do that successfully with a combination of orange plus strawberry plus mixed berry, and also adding a vitamin taste masker into the formulation. Apart from that, we use different excipients to make this ODT, like mannitols were evaluated. We evaluated Supertab 24 AN as well. But what really helped us was these flavors. which really gave a very, very good taste and enhanced the taste of the formulation. Have also sweeteners. So the sweeteners which you all would commonly know are maybe sodium saccharin, you all would be knowing sucralose, you all would be knowing stevia. So these are some of the very common sweeteners used in the industry. But what we have with us is acesulfame potassium, that is the Sunnit brand from Celanese, and this is a non-caloric sweetener, so it can be used in diabetic friendly dosage forms, can be a part of several nutraceutical formulations. And the key takeaway for this particular sweetener is that it helps give a rapid onset of the sweet taste, and which really helps in taste masking of bitter taste of APIs, because it initially gives a rapid onset in on giving a sweet taste, and that's the way it helps in sweetening. So, Sunnit or acesulfame potassium is something which you all can evaluate individually by itself. It also works synergistically with many other sweeteners as well. So that is something which you all can evaluate as a strategy along with flavors for taste masking, and plus you can also do several strategies like providing a mechanical barrier to the API by using lipids or by using excipients and work out a suitable formulation on taste masking. Also from Celanese, you have sorbates, which go under the brand name of Nutrinova as a preservative. So these sorbates in the form of sorbic acid and potassium sorbate work as very good preservatives in formulations, in oral formulations, in topical formulations. And when you compare them with other preservatives, they of course have a very broad spectrum of action compared to the conventionally used preservatives, and also by themselves they are innocuous. They have a neutral flavor and a taste, unlike benzoates and propionates, which impart a characteristic taste and smell to the formulation. So using the flavors, using the sweeteners, you and of course preservatives also, you can really do a very good taste effective masking strategy or projects in your labs. Yes. Uh, Any questions, or should we take the questions at the end of the presentation?
We will take it at the end, Dr.
Yeah.
Kapadia.
And how
Thank
much
you.
time do I have? I think I have 30 minutes. And then,
Yes,
or
we
how,
have. Yeah,
yeah, shall I consider 30 minutes? Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So, next in line is the grant elastomers. So, now what are these elastomers, or topical formulations? So, all this while, whenever earlier, when there were topical formulations or pharma topical formulation which was developed, the lookout was to get the pharmaceutical efficacy of the end formulation. But now the horizon has expanded, the scope has broadened. One just doesn't look out only for pharmaceutical efficacy. What also one looks out is how the topical formulation is going to perform sensorially. Sensorially means on application on the skin, how is one going to feel the formulation. So that also becomes something very, very important. And for this, we have the Grant elastomers, which are silicone based excipients available for imparting a good sensorial feel to the formulation. Okay, so they provide enhanced aesthetics to the formulation, and they can be a good part of topical formulations, they can be a good part of cosmeceutical formulations. And these elastomers not only give a good sensorial feel, but they give you a matte appearance, a powdery after feel, and generally they are a part of several cosmetic formulations. So we have different elastomers available. They are a blend of cyclopentasiloxane and polysilicone 11 that is available from Grant. And these are something which you can evaluate in your topical formulations. Also, what one can have as a penetration enhancer, what we saw earlier was Capmule PG8 from Abitec. We have another good penetration enhancer, which is dimethyl isosorpide, which goes under the brand name of Grand Salt TMI, and this is available from Grant Industries. So it is IID listed and it can be used almost to a concentration of 15% and very much a part of topical formulations for enhancing the permeation of APIs. Okay, so one small case study where the permeation studies of Propa germanium through porcine skin was done on two cream formulations with and without 10% dimethyl isosorbide. So this was the control, and this was with 10% of DMI. So this is what was retained on the tape strips through which the formulation was applied. This was the concentration of the API in the skin, and this was in the receptor fluid. So this was done on an in vitro diffusion apparatus, and when one had 10% DMI in the formulation, one saw that it was really helped in better penetration into the skin, and dimethyl isosorbide helped in delivering actives into the epidermis. Not much was found in the receptor fluids, and it therefore suggests that it does not promote the penetration of the API into the bloodstream. So it really helped in localizing the APIs in the epidermis so that the action of the API for the local action is, exhibited. So that is an advantage of DMI. It's a very good penetration enhancer to be evaluated for topical formulations. It can be a part of topical creams, topical gels, because it has miscibility in water without compromising the clarity of a gel formulation. It can also be a part of topical sprays. It can also be a part of topical aerosol formulations. Yeah. So that is the advantage of using dimethyl isosorbide. Okay. Yes. So next in line is Dober. Now, when I was presenting the portfolio, I had suggested that Dober is something very unique, and it has been recently added into our portfolio. And something like Dober can also help you in divergent thinking of taking up projects in your lab. So, what is this pharmaceutical cleaning solutions? So Dober offers a range of chematic offerings or chematic pharmaceutical solutions. So one thing is formulation of a dosage form using excipients with an API. But what is very important for the pharma industry is also cleaning of the equipments, which one always overlooks, and with so many 483 sections raised, inquiries raised by USFT on so many pharma companies, pharmaceutical cleaning, maintaining quality standards becomes very important. And now no one wants to take a chance, because once you get the 483 from the USFTA, one has to reply to that, and your production stops completely. So earlier, when we and of course, still in pharma industries, they use a lot of alkali-based cleansers for cleaning pharma equipments. Sodium hydroxide-based cleaning agents are used, and what happens is sodium hydroxide, the highly alkaline cleaners, they corrode the equipments. Because of corrosion, it leads to wear and tear of the equipments, and the API gets lodged into these crevices, and then again re-cleaning cost come into picture. So you have again re-cleaning needs to be done, the production stops, so the production cost increases, and altogether these different consequences lead to a lot of losses to the pharma industry. And that's where Dober stands out, in that they have come up with efficient cleaning solutions, and they have specific cleaning solutions for APIs, specific cleaning solutions for different excipients. So like for example, Chematic 82. So Chematic 82 is recommended for cleaning formulations which have silicones, cellulose acetate, steroids, etc. Chematic 99 and Chematic 501 are something which are used for general pharmaceutical cleaning. You have Chematic 422 for pigmented films coating, open dry coatings, and so on. Chematic 1 is for shellac, creams, gels, lotions. So you have a range of chematic cleaning solutions which are there from available from Dober. But generally, as a general pharmaceutical cleaning solution, what is recommended is Chematic 99 and Chematic 501. So just to exemplify, how these cleaning solutions work, I've just put up one small case study, sorry, that we did in our lab. And this study was executed in our IMCT application lab. And what we were in communication with the customer. I cannot disclose the API here, okay, but this, if you see, these filter bags of a fluid bed processor were received from the customer. And you can see how they have stained. So this was the yellow stain from the API, and it was they were really breaking their heads in cleaning these filter bags, So Chematic 82 was evaluated at room temperature. It was evaluated at 40 to 50 degrees Celsius, because increase in temperature also speeds up and accelerates the cleaning time. And you can see the clean filter bags with no yellow stains. So in fact, uh, 1 year what we observed was that uh, generally when we say the increase in temperature enhances the cleaning, but here the cleaning at room temperature was much more efficacious and resulted in a lesser time as compared with the hot process. And in the hot process, even slight swelling of the filter bags was observed. So you can see that what kind of cleaning do these pharmaceutical cleaning solutions offer. And mind you, many of the APIs are colored APIs. There are certain, what you could say, very notorious APIs like mesalamine. You do not see the stains immediately, but you see the stains after a week or so. You see them on the floor, you see them on the walls. And then the industry, the QA QC people are looking for robust cleaning solutions. And this is something which could be taken up as projects in your lab. You all can identify APIs which are difficult to clean, intermediates which are difficult to clean, excipients which are difficult to clean, and you all can take samples and evaluate and develop it as a case study. So this is also some of the areas which can be tapped for research endeavors, and it is a growing area. Companies are looking out for solutions. They are looking for something much more. It's just not formulation, but these aspects also help the industry in giving solutions for the cleaning processes as well. Yeah. So with this, I complete the different principles that we have with IMCT India. And also what I've done is, let me tell you, the portfolio of excipients is huge, but I have just picked up a few which you all could evaluate. With my experience, I felt, that you all could evaluate this in your research projects. So, just a quick introduction to Technical Center of Excellence that we have at IMCT. And what do we do here is that we have our Pharmaceutical Technical Center, which is located in Mumbai. So, here the team actually ideates, formulates, analyzes, and we develop a brand, and we collaborate to develop a suitable formulation for our customers. So it's not only developing prototype concepts, but addressing troubleshooting for our customers and help them or take up their projects and completely work out a project for them in our lab. So basically it is what we do is formulation development based on IMCD's research and market intelligence, because it's very important whenever we take up a project in the lab to find out the consumer needs, understanding the market trends, understanding the global trends, and proactively taking these trends to another region, cross-fertilizing these trends, creating formulations together with our principals, with our customers, utilizing our labs, and promote innovative formulations to our customer partners. So why am I presenting this slide to you? It's just not to show what we are doing, but maybe some of these practices y'all can also inculcate in what y'all do at an academic level, so that y'all are more in par, or y'all are running parallel to the industry, and what work emerges out from your labs will be readily accepted by the industry. Find out the market trends, find out what do the consumer needs. Also find out, I mean, reading databases will help you giving that sort of information. Understand what is the need, what exactly is a pharma industry looking out for, because it's just not that you all do something for research or for academic purposes, but always see how you all can apply whatever has been done in the lab to the industry. And that's the reason I thought, let me put in this particular slide. So, IMCT India is very, very open to academia partnership, IMCD academia partnership, and we are already doing that. So, one thing that we very, very support academia is on samples. So, please reach out to us if you all need any samples for your research, because we have a number of principles with us. We can recommend to you the right excipients if we understand what exactly you all are looking out for. Okay, rather than evaluating a number of excipients, we can discuss with you all and we can support you all in recommending and suggesting the right excipient. We can help you thus with samples. We also do collaborative projects with academia. So sometimes when it's not possible for us to work it out in the lab, we also outsource certain projects. So if you all have certain research proposals which could appeal to us, we will surely look into it and we can do collaborative projects. What we've also done very, very recently is we recruit interns in a pharmaceutical technical center of excellence. And we have an understanding with the academic institution, and the work undertaken becomes a part of the MPharm thesis. So, as of now, I mean, the lab has been inaugurated in 2019, and since then, we've had 2 interns in our lab, and we are in the process of recruiting a few more interns. So this is in collaboration with their projects. So these were MPharm students, and part of the work they did in their college facility, and major chunk of the work was done in our lab. So it was a very good experience for these interns when I hear from them, because they got to work on different equipments available in our lab facility. They also understood what is the pulse of the pharma industry, what does the industry want, because they were also made a part of certain customer interaction, so that they learn in the process. And that is one endeavor which IMCD tries. Of course, campus placement recruitments is something which IMCD looks into, and we have students from different colleges across Mumbai, and also from the south region, south part of India, who have joined us. We have students from BCP, we have students from the VES College of Pharmacy. So we have students from different ICT, we have students who have joined us from different pharma institutes. So we also look forward for campus placement and recruitments. And it's not only formulation development that we look interns for. We also look interns for market studies, because sometimes there are certain students who have more inclination towards the commercial side. So why not? So there are some short market studies we have, and that could be delegated to a particular intern, and that also can be worked out. So it's just not formulation with respect to the lab, because when I'm also working as a director for IMCD for the APAC region, I just can't wear my technical hat. I have to wear several hats, because ultimately what is important also, how is your formulation development going to translate into business. So though you all are from the academic fraternity, keep your eyes wide open also, how you can make some cost effective strategies, or how you can add that added value with a particular excipient and save on cost. So give that a little bit of a commercial angle, because I cannot isolate myself from the business focus of the organization. So it goes more into a techno-commercial role. So if there are students who are interested in that kind of endeavors, we take in interns also for market study. Yes, so I think that was enough from my end. I hope I was able to engage you all positively, and I look forward to have a good question and answer session with you guys. Yeah.
Indeed,
Yes.
indeed. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Chanda, as a technical director, and as usual, the best faculty of Bombay College of Pharmacy. You were
Okay.
always famous for the best faculty. You have proven that yes, every slide there were several takeaway messages you have given. You have helped us understanding the innovation. Every point you have told us, the innovation technology can be driven here, and then you alerted academicians this is how the disintegration or disintegrants can be used or the lipids can be used or several aspects you have spoken. Very lucid presentation and very informative presentations. It's
Thank you.
a
Thank
great
you
pleasure
so
to
much.
have you here. Me, if you allow me,
Yeah.
may I take few questions?
Yes,
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 I'll
please,
just
please.
read out.
Yeah.
Yeah, just read out. So the question asked by Swati Talele, she
Mm-hmm.
asked that how to procure these excipients. I guess you have already given the answer.
Yeah.
Whether they are providing free samples to academicians, means whether you provide free samples.
Yes, yes, yes,
Over
yes.
to
We do
you.
not charge. Yes, yes. Sure. Thank you, Dr. Premlata. And to answer Swati, your question, no, we do not charge at all for samples. Samples are free. But there is just one earnest request which I would like to make. Like Swati, I don't know from which institute you are from, but suppose like you all are asking for certain excipients, and if your other counterpart has also asked for certain excipients, try to share them because we do not charge. So we will definitely help with samples, but try to maintain a bank. So if you have asked for certain samples, and if one of your colleagues is requiring, and you can always share, because it's not necessary that the samples used may be always effective in your formulation development. So try to share so that we can send you all the samples free of cost. But to answer your question, the samples are totally free. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. There's another. Now, there are two questions asked by Dr. Harita Desai. She's
Yeah.
asking, thank you, ma'am, for the very informative session. So, her question is, which specific excipient properties can be considered for co-processing of excipients? You made a mention about
Hmm.
co-processing of excipients. So, she's asking about
So
the which specific excipient properties.
yeah, so the Harita, that depends upon the end functionality, what you are looking for. Like for example, what I presented to you, Supertab 40 LL. Now this is a combination of lactose and lactitol. Now lactose, as I told you, is moderately brittle. So that level of plasticity, which is contributed by microcrystalline cellulose as a filler, is not there in lactose. So that's the reason you combine it with lactitol. So it all depends upon what kind of end functionality one desires. Like for example, lipids. Now lipids are low melting ingredients. Like we saw Econon C50. This is a stearic acid ester of polyethylene glycol. It has a melting point of 50. It is a waxy material. I would be very happy if someone works on a co-process excipient of combining maybe Econon C50 with I would really be very happy with dicalcium phosphate, as an adsorbent. So you get a co-process excipient, and I get a free flowing powder of that lipid, or combining it with silica. So I get a free flowing powder, because that's the problem with lipids. They are waxes, and the industry doesn't want to tap them because they always have that what you could say a block in their minds that, oh, lipids means it's going to melt, I'm going to have sticking issues and all. So maybe co-process excipients in that direction. So it all depends upon, Harita, what end functionality are you looking for, and accordingly it could be co-processed. Nonetheless, or as also I was saying, there are several co-process excipients available in the market. What can also be done as a research endeavor is you all could work on individual excipients and try to compare it with a co-process excipient, because individual excipients, using them would be more cost effective than using a co-process excipient, because a company has spent so much in making a co-process excipient, so obviously they're going to charge the customer for it. So that is also the one endeavor you can think of. I hope I've answered your question, Harita.
She has one more question, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.
She's asking that non Non-parental seeds properties. Which properties of non-parental seeds play key role in effective pelletization?
So what is very very important is the mechanical integrity, because one, if the mechanical integrity is not there for these pellets and you compress them into a tablet and the pellets break, then the whole purpose of formulating that stands defeated. The ideal pellet, if you're going to compress it into a pellet, is that the integrity of the pellet or the identity of the pellet is retained in the end formulation. So mechanical integrity becomes one important thing, and the other thing is, does it provide any added benefit? Okay, like for example, dicalcium phosphate pellets. Dicalcium phosphate is not a hygroscopic material, so it becomes very very specific for certain APIs, where they are moisture sensitive. So chances, if I use microcrystalline cellulose, it's going to absorb water, or if I'm going to use sugar, it's going to absorb water. So those particular properties very very API specific, so it's case to case with APIs. Also if there are certain APIs where they require a slightly alkaline environment for dissolution or for solubilization, there again the dicalcium phosphate pellets are going to contribute. So one thing is from an API perspective, properties of the API, and the other thing, when you look as a starter pellet perspective, it becomes important that the mechanical integrity is retained, so that you have individual identical identity of the pellets retained in the tablets, easier to process, because when you are drug layering on a fluid bed processor, if it doesn't have integrity, it's going to collapse. Generation of static charges, because if it's going to adhere to the walls of the equipment, then again there is not going to be uniformity in drug layering. So these properties play an important role. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question from Nilima Thomre. She's asking,
Mhm.
which excipients can be applied for nutraceutical formulation development?
Okay, so nutraceutical formulation developments. Sorry, this question was from. I didn't get the name.
Nilima Thomre.
Nilima.
Nilima
Yeah.
Thomre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Nilima, thank you very much for your question. For Nutra formulations, generally what they require is that for excipients in India, they require that FSSI status. Okay, so that is one approval which you need to check for that particular excipient. And also for certain excipients, they have a food additive status. So that also can be checked. So if you have the FSSI approval and you have a food additive status, that can be evaluated. But in case if these two are not there, sometimes for certain excipients, like for example, lactose, it is so widely used in the pharma industry, or lipids. Lipids are so widely used in the pharma industry. Lipids are a part of our diet. So sometimes the toxicity report of that particular excipient also confers safety on the usage in nutraceuticals. But generally, from a nutraceutical perspective, a food additive status works really well. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. There are a few more questions.
Yes.
Dr. Priya Singh Gupta, she's asking, ma'am, when you mention interns for market study, my question is, are the market research students without pharma background are entertained for internship?
So it depends upon the interest of that particular student. It's not necessary that one has to be doing a MBA course or something to qualify as an intern. If yes, they are doing an MBA course, it is an added asset. But if you have a BPharm student who is taking that extra effort, the moment you speak to the student, you realize the attitude of the student, and the student has an attitude to work. And if the student is really interested from a commercial angle, yes, why not? We would evaluate those students also. Definitely.
Thank you. One more question from Prarthana Tale. She's
Mhm.
asking, Grand elastomer had one property of blurring of skin.
Hmm.
Can it be used or modulated to be used as a primer?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It can be used. In fact, it plays a this particular of blurring of skin helps in giving a better coverage and providing a uniformity to the skin to prepare a skin base for applying further makeups or for applying sunscreens, whatever. In fact, nowadays what they have done is, if you see the sunscreens which are available, from the pharmaceutical companies, like you have Suncross, you have La Shield from Glenmark. If you see the sunscreens, they are heavily loaded with silicone elastomers, and these silicone elastomers give that dry, matte effect to the formulation. And otherwise, generally, when sunscreens are there, if you all remember the earlier sunscreens, they really gave a very oily feel to the skin. But the presence of these elastomers in these formulations help negate that effect. They give a very dry and a matte feel. And sometimes they also say that rather than using a primer, why spend money on a primer? You can use that sunscreen formulation itself, because it is so heavy, loaded with. Hello, is someone raising
Yes,
some?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think the disturbance.
yeah, yeah.
But you can go on. Yeah, admin, requesting you to just switch
Yeah.
off the mic of the some participant's mic is on.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
It's
ma'am. Yeah,
disturbing. Thank you,
Yeah.
Arita.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you. So the question is very appropriate. It can be used in primers, and in fact, if it is so used in sunscreen formulations, that itself works as a primer as well as a sunscreen. So yes, because of the blurring effect, it can be used in primers. Yeah.
One question from Josna Rani Dash. She's asking,
Hmm.
is excipient has any relation with dosage form? Whether
Uh,
excipient has
uh-huh.
any relation with dosage form?
I'm not getting the question well. I mean.
Yeah.
So okay, let me answer it. Let me try to answer it. Josna can tell me whether she's got the answer or not. So if you're thinking from a regulatory viewpoint, okay, so if customers, if a pharma company is working for a regulated market, okay, and they want to say evaluate. I'm just giving you an example. Just uh, just a general example, like for example, lactose. Now, lactose is widely used in tablets, right? But if a customer wants to use it in a topical formulation, now what the customer will do is they will go on IID and check whether lactose is registered or seen in the IID list and has been evaluated for a topical formulation. So if they don't see it in the IID, they are not very comfortable in using it for a topical dosage form. So yes, certain excipients, if they have been used in oral dosage forms, but they have not been IID listed for a topical dosage form, the customers for a regulated market formulation development, they might not go. So here, yes, excipients are from a regulatory standpoint depend upon what the dosage form is. But is it something that lactose can never be used for topical dosage form? No. There are ways. So there could be some toxicity report, or someone has to be first to use it in topical dosage form. So this is more from a regulatory standpoint. Now, to answer you from a formulation standpoint, I think sky's the limit. It's not that if an excipient is for an oral dosage form, it cannot be evaluated for a topical dosage form, or something which is for a topical dosage form cannot be evaluated for an injectable or ophthalmic dosage form. It can always be evaluated, but then it has to fulfill the regulatory criteria. Like for example, dimethyl isosorbide. Now, dimethyl isosorbide is a very excellent solubilizer for topical formulations. But if you see in an injectable also solubilization plays a pivotal role. So can it be used for injectable formulations? It can be used, but I do not have regulatory documentation from grant to support that. So when you all are doing your research ventures also, critically look into this, because it should happen that it should not happen that you all spend a lot of time doing it and then the industry does not accept it because that particular excipient from a regulatory standpoint does not fulfill that criteria. So look into those aspects also. Try to go into those sites of IID, go onto the US FDA website, go onto the Orange Book, look into that. Don't ignore all those, because if you want to put in a proposal to the industry is going to look into all this. Yeah, I hope
Thank
I've
you.
answered.
Thank you. Yeah, she'll write otherwise down in the chat box. So
Yeah.
we have few more questions. If you allow me to take.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
mind, because I was told there's
yeah.
also some quiz time. So there are some questions I
Let
have
us
put up
yeah,
also.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
First, we will take because there are quite a few number of questions are there.
sure.
We have Shagufta Khan. Ms. Shagufta Khan is asking what would be the effect of lipid excipients in delivering drugs for diabetes and BP, wherein chronic administration could perhaps be detrimental.
Not really, not really. That what you are saying for diabetes and BP is consuming good quantum of lipids in food. So when you have lipids in tablets or you have lipids in capsules, I mean the quantity is not so significant at all. So in fact, Shagufta, cholesterol lowering APIs, they have a lot of solubility issues. And for these cholesterol lowering APIs, for improving their solubility, lipids are used. So not at all. So it's quite an anomaly, that you have a lipid lowering API, but you are using a lipid in the formulation. So these quantum of lipids do not affect, not at all, not at all, for diabetes or for blood pressure. No, no worries at all. The
Thank
quantum is
you.
too
Thank you.
less. Yeah, yeah.
Thank Dr. Ujwala Shinde, ma'am, asking that could you suggest excipient to prepare water-based sunscreen spray?
Water-based sunscreen
Sunscreen spray.
spray. Yeah. So we could have the silicone elastomers. Yeah, if you're looking for water-based sunscreen sprays, we could evaluate DMIs, and uh, I actually, in fact, what we have worked at is with a water-resistant sunscreen formulation, because that is the need of the hour, where you have sunscreens which are water resistant. Water soluble sunscreen spray means, if you're talking about mineral sunscreens, Ujwala, or you're talking about chemical sunscreens.
Chemical sunscreens.
Chemical sunscreens means it's very very important to solubilize them, right? Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, and that's not easy, but maybe as a micro emulsion system, I don't know, something from a micro emulsion system, a surfactant system to solubilize these sunscreens. We've never tried that, because we always thought that going in for a micro emulsion system, though on paper it sounds good, for a sunscreen, which is to be applied liberally onto the skin, would it be a viable, cost-effective alternative? Because then you will have, see, putting in a set system in a small capsule for solubility enhancement and putting it in a topical system is quite different. But what I can really think of is micro emulsion systems. But how viable will it be, cost wise? I do not know. But that seems to be one option which I can think of. Yeah.
Because sunscreens are applied very frequently. So when
Hmm.
you are traveling or something, so you can just spray it on your face, so which will evaporate and which won't have any this irritation of use of any organic solvents or something. In that context, I'm asking.
Yeah, but more of that, what's coming to my mind is a micro emulsion system. Micro emulsion system, because uh, uh, but also the Ujwala, also what I would like to highlight is that the new sunscreens which have come up, which are those non-greasy sunscreens, they are very very comfortable to apply. But I understand when you are talking about a spray, what I can closest think of is something like maybe a micro emulsion system, or it could be maybe like an aerosol system, a cream based aerosol system which can be sprayed on and just spread onto the skin. Because solubilizing sunscreens or in solvents, I mean in water based systems, which are also to be, like for example dimethyl isosulfide, or there is diethylene glycol monoethyl ether, which can be used for solubilizing. Would that be so much of solvents be a viable alternative? Plus you are talking about miscibility in water. So not an easy task, but definitely maybe micro emulsion systems, or alternatively look in for aerosol systems where you can also have a cream based and then it's easy to apply. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's immediately coming to my mind. Maybe we could take it up offline, Ujwala.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We have another question from Sunil Kumar Sapita.
Yeah.
Is asking that what is the effect of medicines which are manufactured with the excipient of expiry dated medicines? Further, is writing that I am asking this question on the basis of recently seized fake medicines of mucormycosis by Crime Branch Delhi Police. It is all up to
Yeah.
you whether to how to answer and whether to answer or not.
No, no, no. Every question is a good question, and I believe that every question there is a learning for me. So we never encourage our customers, or we even academicians, if they ask us for samples, we never give excipients which have crossed the expiry date. Okay, so because what happens is the moment it crosses the expiry date, there is no responsibility of INCD or the particular supplier for the authenticity or the functionality of the excipient for what is intended. So we do not encourage that at all. In fact, even when we have a commercial supply to our customers, we are on the principle of first in, first out. Okay, so what has come earlier, those only samples or those commercial products are supplied to customers. So we do not encourage at all of excipients which have expired. In fact, sometimes when we do not have stock of excipients, and customers, I mean, they emphasize upon the fact that it's okay even if it's expired, if it's 1 month expired and all, you send it, let us evaluate. But we never encourage that. I have strictly told my team not to send such kind of samples, so we don't send those samples at all. And of course, about the case study which you are saying, it could be possible. I've also heard of many such case studies, and they are under investigation. And now, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a dearth and shortage of medicines. Can you all imagine API like paracetamol was being sold at more than 1,000 rupees a kilo. So there was a shortage, and because of which such things would have happened. But we never encourage such kind of activities.
Thank you.
I,
There's one
I,
question from
yeah,
one more question from
sure.
Vijay Shivpuje. He's
Yes.
asking, are there any regulatory issues with respect to co-process excipients?
Yeah. So what happens is, to get an excipient into the pharmacopoeia also, it's not very easy. But in fact, getting a new excipient also, because you need to have the complete tox data and all to qualify the regulatory constraints. But in case of co-process excipients, it works out quite positively, because co-process excipients are generally a combination of two excipients which are already been there in the industry for a long, long time. Okay, so if you have a combination of lactose and microcrystalline cellulose, lactose has been in the industry for a long time. It is an established product. Microcrystalline cellulose has been in the industry for a long time. It is an established product. So something which is established, something which is safe, something which is innocuous, something which has been proven, and if they are combined together, so that gives an added advantage. So that's the reason companies go in for a lot of co-process excipient development, because the regulatory hurdles to be encountered are less as compared to a fresh new excipient. If I come all together with a new excipient, the regulatory demands are pretty stringent. But in co-processed, it is not so serious. It is quite accepted.
One
Yeah. Yes. Yes, Dr. Premlata.
Yeah, there's one more question coming from Dr. Norma. She's
Mm-hmm.
asking, wonderful presentation. Her question is, Madam, could you suggest suitable polymers for formulating peel off face mask for a fruit-based cosmetic?
Peel off face mask.
Face
So,
mask.
yeah. So Norma, thank you for this question. But there are so many, like elastomers can be a part of this. Okay, dimethyl isosorbide can be a part of this. You will require certain film forming agents, so we have certain other excipients from BSF which have not been a part of this portfolio. Like we did one film forming spray with Colicot SR30D, so this forms a film on drying. So that could be a part of your formulation. And penetration enhancers could be a part of your formulations. The sensorial agents, elastomers can be a part of your formulation. So there are much more than what I presented here, because owing to paucity of time and all, it was not possible. I just picked and chose which I felt with my experience would be interesting for you all. But yes, there are a number of excipients in our portfolio which can be evaluated for the peel of masks as well. Of course, it depends upon what kind of a mask are you looking for. If you're looking for a clay mask, or you are looking for a polymeric mask, or you are looking for something more natural. So depending on that, you have an array of excipients from which you can choose from.
We have one, maybe we can take a last question.
Sure.
That is, yeah, 1 minute. I missed that question.
Yeah.
Uh, 1 minute. I missed actually that question, but
No.
just searching for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you also provide excipients helping in overcome BBB, blood-brain barrier?
Uh, we do not have those kind of excipients in our portfolio, because I believe those, because when I'm making this statement, I'm saying that because I don't see that kind of data with the excipients that we have in our portfolio. Having said that, I think complex lipids work more in that direction, the phospholipids, the sphingolipids, and the specialized lipids. So what lipids that we have with us are simple lipids. They don't fall into this criteria. But we do not have the I mean the complex lipids, and maybe those could help you in those kind of endeavors. So we do not have any excipients which are specially recommended for crossing over the blood-brain barrier. At least I don't have data for that, or I don't have information stating that these particular excipients could be used. Yeah.
I think that's it for the day. There are several other questions must be there in
Okay.
participants' mind because the session was so informative and very, very interesting. Though it was after lunch hour, but we never felt boring at all because every slide there were several takeaways. So thank you
Thank you.
so much, Dr. Chanda. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And
Thank
may I request coordinators and the admin to take over? Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Premita Ambre, ma'am, for chairing this session. Now call upon Dr. Ujjwala Shinde, ma'am, for facilitating Chanda Kapadia, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Chanda. It's always been a great pleasure to work with you at Bombay College of Pharmacy. Thank you for this excellent information today you have shared. As usual, your this one session brought new insight from current developments in field of excipient. Having an experience in academic teaching as well as in research, and now as a technical head at IMCD, you indeed focused on role of innovative excipients in developing new drug delivery systems. We extend our thank for your valuable time, and with the green token of appreciation which our research scholar they have planted Parigar in BCP Green
you.
Campus.
Okay. Wow. That's
So
great.
could you play video So whenever once you come to this BCP, please come and do some.
Surely, yes. So, yeah. Wow. That's really very nice. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Ujwala.
This is the theme of our FDP.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. That's so nice. And in fact, this is divergent thinking. As per the theme which has been lined up for today, very impressive and very innovative. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And as a token of appreciation, this e-certificate from our side.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.